Welcome, ladies. Delighted to have you here. So Chelsea, my first question is for you. Now, I've got you a bunch of appointments right now, so you can thank me later. As the director of government appointments in Florida, you support candidate vetting and recruitment. What success have you had in this role, and do you have any percentages in regards to the number of females you've been able to place in this role? And can you share with the audience the diverse opportunities in this area and why they should sign up?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for pointing out everyone from Florida, because yes, please come find me and we'll find a way to get you more involved. As far as percentages, you mentioned that corporate board in 2022 is about 25%. Since I've been in the role, which I took January of 2022, the governor has appointed, I would say, about 33% women. Beyond that, we have 6 female secretaries serving and overseeing agencies. The governor statistically has appointed more female judges to the bench than any of our previous governors, including 4 Supreme Court justices who are female, 3 of whom are still serving. 1 of them got elevated to the federal court. So Governor DeSantis is doing a great job when it comes to getting females involved in civic engagement, one of them being Kelly. As far as the opportunities and getting involved, I like to think the opportunities are endless. And everyone, if they have the public servant's heart and they have the time to commit, they really should dive in and find a way to help. You can get involved in your city, you can get involved in county, and then from a statewide, we have statewide boards and we have also district boards. So we have everything from education, environmental, DBPR, which is licensing and regulation, health boards. So if you want to serve, we will find you a place to serve. And you might say to yourself, well, I'm not a doctor, so I can't serve on the Board of Medicine. Fun fact, most of our boards have lay members or citizen members where we want folks who have no experience in that realm to bring on a different perspective when they're taking votes and writing policy.
Excellent. Now, Kelly, I always tell people eyes wide open. So walk us through your journey in getting appointed to your most current position. And what's been the biggest challenge, while at the same time, where do you see the biggest opportunity that you can influence there?
Sure. So I'm sure some can relate to my maybe a little less traditional background and how I ended up on the State Board of Education. I was a teacher for 10 years. I worked in public, private, and charter schools. And I always had a heart and a huge intellectual curiosity about the education reform. And I think that stemmed from my experience as a Teach for America Corps member, where I really learned to understand the issues in public education. That intellectual curiosity, I think, drove me to seek out individuals who had interesting perspectives on education. And throughout my time teaching, I was constantly building relationships with those who were involved in education in the state of Florida. At the time that I was appointed, I actually wasn't working at all. I had had my 3rd child. I was taking a little bit of a break, and I began to get involved in my community in a different way. I laugh now thinking that I was taking a break because it actually was a time when my career took off in a way I couldn't have imagined. But for me, I think the pathway was starting to get involved in my community in a way that I was serving my community, learning within my community about the local issues that our community faced, and building up my leadership skills on a local board. From that point, some of the relationships that I had built over my time in education had led me to this opportunity and led me to Chelsea, where Chelsea was just looking for someone who was committed to education and who aligned with the governor's policy agenda, and it was kind of a match made in heaven. I will say part of the pathway for me was an openness to serve, and not just serve out of ego, but serve where the governor needed me. So when my first appointment was to the board of Florida Virtual School, I was unfamiliar with what the breadth of what Florida Virtual School did at the time. However, I knew that there was a huge, important place for virtual education in the state of Florida, especially post-COVID. So that opportunity was really intriguing to me. And the opportunity to serve on that board and saying yes to that and serving in that area is really what equipped me to eventually be appointed to the State Board of Education about a year later. Now, the second part of that question, I think it was about challenges, opportunities. Yeah. Am I remembering that right?
You got it.
Okay. So first, I want to say it's absolutely been a joy, honor, and privilege to serve the governor in this capacity. I have learned more in the last couple years than I have in probably my entire life. I mean, it really has put things at light speed. And the greatest challenge, this is public service, and people will reach out because they are angry, they're confused, they've been given inaccurate information, and they don't know where to direct that frustration. But our email addresses are right there on the Department of Education website, and we're an easy place for someone to deposit their frustrations. And there have been moments where it's a little bit unsettling. There are moments where you may take it personally if you don't take a deep breath and use some of my skills that I learned at Frameworks, my emotional intelligence skills to manage that. But I would say that learning how to manage people's frustrations and developing a thicker skin is the challenge. Now, it is all worth it when I think about the impact, the number of students in Florida that we serve, over 3 million students, the opportunities that we provide for teachers, the decisions that we've made that have made Florida the #1 state for education in this country. I am so proud of, particularly in the areas of school choice, in the areas of pathways for teacher certification. We know that the teacher that is in front of a student is the #1 predictor of their success. And we have a governor that's invested over $3 billion to help increase the number of teachers that commit to the teaching profession. That's a huge area of opportunity to even have just a little piece, be a one cog in the wheel of being able to honor teachers and attract great teachers to the profession is really meaningful to me. Secondarily, for me, is actually not secondarily, this is probably as a parent, really the most important piece of what we do is keeping parents first in a child's education. We know that parents need to be the first and primary decision makers for their children, and protecting parents' rights has been an absolute honor for me.
That's excellent. Dawn, what inspired you to run for school board? And since you've taken on that journey, you are school board president now as well. How have you been able to influence the policies locally that I know you cared about and the people who voted for you cared about?
I think like many people, COVID was an eye-opener, was a disruptor. So I have 3 children, ranging in age. My oldest is 25, my son is 25, daughter 22, and a son that's age 12. So we had a surprise baby. And so living in the same school district for all 3 children, it gave me visibility to see the variances in education between my older 2 and my youngest. So with a 10 and 12-year age span between the 2, we saw significant changes in academic rigor, the influence of some of the activism that's taken place in the curriculum, and so much more that really unsettled us and actually, quite honestly, frustrated and angered me, because I live in a community, we've been in the community for 29 years, and so we've seen the city evolve from a town to a city, from 30,000 to now over 100,000 people. And so with that growth comes a lot of change, but also things were happening in the school system in my district that as a parent, I was angry and frustrated, but really I should be turning that anger and frustration on myself, because I trusted my school system to teach my children so that I could be full-time working mom and do the other things and, send my kids off to school so they can get their education and go on with life. Well, kind of a little bit of an about-face on my part to go, okay, now I have to take responsibility. Now what am I going to do? And like everybody else that was, I think, shut behind, the doors with COVID, you take to social media. And while it's a great place, I call it the vortex, the emotional vortex, the vomiting vortex of emotions, so to speak. It doesn't solve anyone's problems, but it sure got everybody ginned up. And so I went into research mode and looking at how do I solve for this? How do I solve for this? Looking at who's going to step up, who's going to help me do this, and then realize I've got to be the one to do this. And, so put up or shut up. And so I stepped into the ring of fire, as they say, and it has been that, and some of the points you brought up are so true. So with that, some of the things that we've stepped into, in my district we have 7 board members. So in the election that we had literally a year ago, we had 4 district seats that were up. We flipped all 4. So we went from a liberal board to a conservative board, so we now had majority. And in thanks. And it was a heavy lift, but the 4 of us there's strategies, and I'm willing to talk one off with anyone that wants to know, because there's a method in how we did it to our success. But I think that with us, the 4 of us coming in, we decided the three of the 4 new members are now on the executive committee for the board. So, and I am now the sitting board president. So with that, be careful what you wish for, right? So some of the first things that we did, I think, that were critical and instrumental that influenced some of the policy and the things that we did is we changed our legal counsel. And I think, as you heard earlier on this panel up here in an earlier discussion, having a strong legal counsel by your side is critical, because it's foundational to everything that you do as a board, because really to affect change, everything you're going to do has to affect policy. And that's not only on the school board, that's at the state, the federal level, everything. So we knew that everything we were doing needed to be grounded in law, and we needed a strong legal counsel to help us in doing that. So that was critical. Some of the key things we changed right away looked at, the student handbook that had a microaggression policy that the former board put in there, and the microaggression policy was specific to historically marginalized populations only. And we put a stop to that. We took it out. We moved it. We said we represent all students, and whether microaggressions exist or not, there's a very laser narrow focus towards one subset, and we're ignoring the rest of the entire population. That's unacceptable. So we took it out and made crystal clear we're here representing every student in this district, which is over 21,000 students. Secondly, we also removed Panorama from our district. We got it out. We were not interested in mining data for the children, and there's so much more to that I won't go down. But also, I think some of the things more recently that we're really excited about is that one of the things we really ran on is we want to make sure that we're attracting and retaining top teachers. And so with our recent collective bargaining agreement, we made sure that we are the highest paying district in our county, and so we are. So we now have the highest pay rate for teachers in Hamilton County. Our district specifically is the 3rd lowest funded school district in the state of Indiana. 2 other districts in neighboring cities are the 2nd and the 1st. So we are high achieving district, but also a high achieving county in the state of Indiana. So that was critically important. We also just recently passed a referendum, an operational referendum, which was huge considering the opposition we had. So for us sitting in the chairs, even though we came forward as conservative, fiscally conservative candidates, there's a sizable budget. So for a district of our size, we have a $300 million budget. It's one of the key critical pillars of responsibility in the board is budget. And during that time, we're going to start to peel back the layers to see how we can continue to refine more, but to do that in the first 6 months or 7 months that we're in is a daunting task. But over time, we know that we're going to continue to whittle away at that.
Wow, you've done a lot in a short period of time.
Oh, yes.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Wow. Yes. Chelsea, my question to you is, because all of the boards look so different. I mean, you mentioned, I always tell people every state is different. That's why we encourage you to do the CLEAR program so you can figure out how your state works. Walk us through kind of what do you look for in a quality candidate for a board and commission? What are the things that stand out to you?
So to your point of every board is so different, one of the biggest questions I get is, tell me about the board. What is the time commitment? How often do they meet? What do I have to do? And my piece of advice for anyone looking to get involved is, if you are interested in a particular board, or maybe you go onto your state's website and you say like, oh, here are 5 boards that I'm interested in, then go find that board's website and go look at the board members, look at who's currently serving, look at their meeting agendas, look to see the meeting dates, because that will give you the best idea of how often they're meeting, what is the time frame. Some boards meet once a year, some boards meet monthly, like the state board. Some boards have subcommittees that they're meeting multiple times per month. Some boards meet for 3 hours per month. Other boards meet for 3 days per month. So to figure out the time, if you're saying I have the time to commit, really talk to yourself to figure out how much time you have to give. Because, you know, Kelly has young children at home. For her, going on a 3-day per month board meeting might not work compared to, you know, 1 day a month, or quarterly, where quarterly per year. Some other things what makes boards so different is, like I said, every board, we have Board of Medicine where you need doctors and lay members. We have the Barbers Board where we need barbers and lay members. We have the Alzheimer's Advisory Council where we have to have people who were either a caregiver or had a family member who had Alzheimer's, but we also need physicians on that board. So the pathway and what we look for is different just based on the board. Overall, what I look for is someone who wants to roll up their sleeves and get the job done and actually work. If you are applying just to make it a resume booster, you're not going to get out of it what you're expecting, and we're not going to get out of it what we're expecting of an appointee from the governor's office. Because at the end of the day, I look at our appointees as an extension of this administration, and to push the policies forward in those industries that the governor has laid out. What other things that I look for is first of all, just apply. Fill out our application. But I look to see what roles you've had in your community. So when Kelly's name was brought to me, you know, she was a stay-at-home mom. She was a retired teacher, I'm going to call it. But she was very active in her community. So that showed me she had that servant's heart, and she wanted that civic engagement and leadership. And she was open to just getting in the education field. So have an open mind as well, because it will help you find your spot, I think, sooner rather than later. Because like Kelly, who had her eyes set on State Board of Education at first, when we were talking, I had said, hey, we have an opportunity on Florida Virtual School. Would you be interested in that, to understand being on a state board? You know, we have sunshine laws, and just how a board operates. And she said, sure. And she was willing to take that leap of faith. And then it worked again. She did so well, the governor reappointed her. And then there was a vacancy on the State Board of Education. And when we were like, who would be a good fit, Kelly came automatically to my mind, because we're like, she did such a good job. Why not see if she's interested in, you know, in my head, being elevated to a board that oversees all K through 12 education plus our state college system.
You missed one question people always ask.
Oh, sorry.
Do you pay mileage? They always ask that question.
That is, you're absolutely right. Everyone's like, what is the time commitment and how much will I get paid?
Exactly.
I would say that 98% of our boards are volunteer, which is why I say please have the conversation with yourself and figuring out how much time you can commit. Again, every board is different, so I have to look at every single statute or chapter law. Most boards do say that there is a per diem and a travel reimbursement based upon, I don't know the statute number, but based upon the other statute number of what outlines that. There are other boards, though, that say no. Then we do have boards that actually pay a salary, but those seats typically are a full-time job where they can't allow outside employment.
Right. Kelly, you mentioned that Florida's been ranked #1 in education in the country, and that's a wonderful ranking. Can you just briefly touch on, I know we normally think about state education boards, but is there any overlay with other boards that you have? Because education feeds into so much, right? Into commerce and, other areas. Do you guys have any role in that capacity?
So we think of education as a huge part of our economy in the state of Florida as an economic driver because we want to create a talented workforce. So we do overlap some with our Department of Commerce. We overlap some with our college, university boards. We overlap some, who else, Chelsea?
You said workforce.
Florida Virtual School.
State apprenticeship.
Yes, and our Florida Virtual School is its own independent board, but if Florida Virtual School would be based on the number of students they serve, it would make them the largest school district within the state of Florida. So there is overlap in all of those areas.
Do you overlap with the Early Learning Coalition?
Early Learning Coalition.
They handle our VPK program.
That's great. And that's important for people to see because there is a layering. It's not just a standalone. Our time has gone really quick, but we're going to get a quick lightning round, okay? And this is the question. What bit of advice would you give to the ladies who are sitting out here to maximize their influence, how they could be effective if they get the opportunity to serve?
Say yes when you can. So if you get the opportunity to serve on a board or get elected and you have the opportunity to take on a leadership role or be on a committee, just say yes. Dive in deep, absorb all of the information. And again, I just go back to you really want to fill the seat if you're willing to make the impact. That would be my advice.
It's yours, Kelly.
I would say stay curious, ask questions, stay engaged, and show up. Show up again and again and ask questions and ask more questions and just be present.
Always be learning. The CLEAR program, I've gone through all three of them. 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, which is the education one, is a differentiator if you choose to run for office. You can become the intelligent candidate in the room that's not distracted. You will be distracted, but you can stay the course and stay focused on the conversation at hand, knowing how the office is run, how government works, because I can guarantee that everybody else running probably is not as in tune with that, and you can use that to your advantage and make those your tools in the toolbox to really give you that foundation to be that stronger candidate that stands out.
That's excellent. Ladies, thank you so much. Will you put your hands together and thank them? And I have to encourage you, of course, Dawn was my infomercial talking about CLEAR, and she is just a wonderful example of what the CLEAR program is about. So you can see here, there is a QR code, and if you are interested, we are taking applications for our 2024 year, and we would love to have you participate so we can help walk you in your journey of success and making a difference in your local community. So thank you again. It's been a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you.